AMD's 23.8.1 drivers has just dropped in time for the latest season of Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Fortnite's latest season. So this one we'll have to try out, and this one's quite a mixed bag. There are some games which will favor the old drivers, and there are some games which will favor the latest drivers. So let's get on with this one. As always, we are running our Ryzen 5800 X3D paired with our RX 6700 XT 12GB card. All specs are in the description right here. Let's start off with Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone at competitive settings. Okay, let's start off with Call of Duty Modern Warfare synthetic benchmarks, and right off the bat, boys, we can see right here that it seems like the results are pretty close between the two drivers. We've got, they're pretty close. I think the difference here is that we've got more RAM on our latest drivers, and also, well, more or less the same VRAM. GPU clocks are the same. GP power is more or less the same. We got a frame time spike there for our latest drivers, and do note, boys, we have run this multiple times, so there as until we can get the best results. So for the 23.8.1 drivers, it seems okay. 1.1% lows are better, 1% lows are better in this run. Let's go off with a real benchmark in Al Mazrah, and here we go. Al Mazrah, you can see that our frame time charts are pretty bad in here. I think it's Warzone becoming Warzone again. 0.1% lows favors the previous driver, although there are close, well, more or less the same. And once again, we've got more RAM on our latest drivers, using more RAM, latest drivers. VRAM slightly higher on the old driver, but pretty much negligible in here, boys. GPU power the same. There's a frame time spike there for our old driver. Like I said, that's probably Warzone. Warzone average FPS and 1% lows are more or less the same. Let's go with 1440p with FSR turned on and see if there's any difference. Alright, here we go. FSR turned on and 1440p competitive settings, and it seems like our latest driver, latest driver could be a little bit better in here with our 1% lows slightly over the older drivers. And same thing, we're still using slightly more RAM on our latest drivers, and VRAM's pretty negligible. Right, let's try test out anti-lag turn on and turn off on our latest driver and see if there's any difference, because recently we've got issues with Warzone's anti-lag, and you can see right here that's pretty much negligible. This basically, it seems like there's nothing running in here. There's no anti-lag running, so it's probably broken with Warzone. Anyway, we'll be doing more of these tests, boys. If you appreciate these tests, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing a whole lot of these driver updates with Warzone. So yes, we'll move on to our next game, which is Apex Legends. And here we go, Apex Legends. As always, we're using competitive settings at 1080p just for this testing. And yeah, here's the firing range, and seems like our latest driver is doing better in this initial start. Yep, although we do have those frame times, a little bit of frame time spike here. Let's see which one has better stability. Yeah, looks like our latest driver is much more stable compared to the older driver. Right, there we go. Still shots in here. The still shots seem to favor the older driver, because you can see in here we got a little bit of micro status here for our latest driver. Pretty negligible, just for 0.1% lows, but our average FPS and 1% lows, they're pretty close to each other. We got using more RAM on our older driver, and our latest driver uses less VRAM, so less VRAM and less RAM on our latest driver. So yeah, that's something to consider if you're playing Apex Legends. Everything else is more or less the same. Let's go to our next game, Fortnite. And as always with Fortnite, we're going to test out all three APIs, DX11, DX12, and performance mode. We'll start off with DX12, as always competitive settings, which is mostly low at 100% resolution scaling. And yes, in here it seems like our latest driver is probably better on the 1% lows at the start of the benchmark. 0.1% low, you could probably just disregard that. We are using less RAM and less VRAM on our latest driver, so that's actually a good thing if you're concerned about those things. Yep, definitely higher 1% lows and higher overall average FPS for our latest driver compared to our older driver. Let's see some heavy action scenes in here. Okay. Right. Yeah, definitely has more stability in our latest driver with all these like chaos in between. Let's move on to DX11 and see if there's any difference with DX11 with our latest driver. Okay, DX11, and as always we are using competitive settings here, mostly low again, and see how this one turns out. Okay, looks like we have a strong start here for our latest driver. Once again, pretty better, slightly better compared to our previous driver. Still using less RAM and still using less VRAM, so that's actually a pretty good thing. We do have those frame time spikes in here, but that's on both drivers. Let's see, and once again 1% lows goes to the latest drivers. Even a 0.1% low still goes to the latest driver, which is actually quite a good thing. Our GPU clock, they're more or less the same. Let's see some heavy action scenes in here. Yep, definitely much more stable on our latest driver. A little bit negligible in there, you know, a few frames in there, but it still goes to our latest driver. And do note, boys, we have run these benchmarks multiple times, so yeah, until we could get like the best and more consistent results before we started recording on an external PC. So it's pretty clear in here which one to go. So yeah, let's go performance mode. Okay, performance mode. Here we have our settings here, basically everything low apart from meshes which are set to high. Okay, and as you know, performance mode is not very good for AMD cards, and you can see that with our GPU clock. There's still the same. They haven't fixed this bug here for AMD. You really need to fix this GPU clock issue with performance mode. It's still clocking really low, and this is why the performance for both like the latest drivers and the previous drivers is more or less the same. They still suck compared to our older, well, the other APIs, DX11 and DX12. So there's pretty much no point in continuing with this benchmark. Let's go bump up our clock speeds for our GPUs, RX 6700 XT, and see if there's any difference here with performance mode. So yes, here we go. Turn that on, GPU tuning. Turn that thing on, set it to 2500. That's our minimum frequency. So let's see if there's any difference now. And here we go. We definitely have better 1% lows and 0.1%, well, average FPS for both drivers, although it seems like it's leaning towards the previous driver for performance mode. So see, yep, RAM we still are using less RAM and slightly less VRAM on our latest driver, so I suppose that's a good thing. We still got those frame time spikes in here. I think they're experiencing more or less the same. Yeah, more or less the same. Heavy action scenes in here. Boom. Yeah, they're pretty close, pretty negligible apart from the RAM and the VRAM. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's move on to our next game, boys. Alright, next game is Valorant. So we're on 1080p competitive settings in here. Let's see how this one plays out. Okay, looks like they're very close to each other. Yep, really close. Now we have improved our 1% lows in here, and 0.1% lows are pretty good as well. Once again, we are using less RAM and less VRAM in our latest driver, so that's actually a good thing. It's some optimizations in there. Let's see with some heavy action scenes. Let's see which one is much more stable. Average FPS was still running 1000 average FPS. I think, yeah, they're very close to each other. I think much more stable in the 0.1% lows with the latest driver, but they're pretty close. So yeah, I guess the good thing about this one is still the RAM and the VRAM. Let's move on to the next game, PUBG. Once again, 1080p competitive settings and DX11 enhanced. So yes, let's try some running shots in here. Okay, it seems to favor the latest driver in terms of 0.1% lows, but the average FPS and 1% loss goes to the previous driver. We're still using less RAM and less VRAM on our latest drivers. Let's go with some heavy action scenes. Okay, let's see which is much more stable. I think the latest driver is more stable. I know there's a little bit of angle in here, but this was where we just recorded. Yeah, it's much more stable in the latest driver, so I guess we will probably stick with the latest driver on this one. As you know, explosions and all that stuff, effects are much more important in doing some benchmark, and we can see that here. And yes, once again boys, this is all the test gear. I'm pretty sure AMD will release a new driver when they release the 7800 XT and the 7700 XT. So if you're keen to know on how that will affect performance on our competitive games, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. We are doing independent testings in here. There's none of that bias. So yes, we have our disclaimer in case you forgot about that one on the first B-roll. So yeah, we'll see you guys on the next video.